Starbucks wants to make it easy to join Obama's proposed paramilitary brown shirt volunteers. Starbucks will honor each person who pledges with a free tall brewed coffee beginning Wednesday, January 21st through the Sunday, January 25th. The goal of the effort is to raise pledges in excess of 1 million hours of service from all over the country for the new domestic Obama force. Well, thank you, Starbucks. The coffee I had was delicious, and I'm glad that you're pushing fascism. It's very nice of you. So, this is just another effort, not only by the media, but to really get the people behind them. I mean, again, cover of Spider-Man. The Spider-Man comic sold out. I mean, people hoarded it. I can't get a copy for under $80. This is, a $4 comic book, something that probably cost them 30 cents to make on a printing press. And, of course, he's given the new cool guy bump with Spider-Man. He's the real hipster. And when I saw that, we played the Obama Youth Brigade clip earlier. The Obama Youth Brigade clip, because of Obama, I can be the next engineer. Because of Obama, I can be the next architect. Well, how about pride in yourself? Why do you need a figure like Obama to do these things? And now the Democrats have proposed an $825 billion stimulus bill, one of many, I'm sure. Bernanke this week came out and said they're going to need more bailouts. Paulson from the very beginning said that banks were going to go under no matter what happened with these bailouts. So, Webster, what do you see happening in the next couple months? We're 6 days away from the inauguration. Do you see another bailout bill being passed? Do you see the stimulus bill going through? What's on the agenda?
The second round of the TARP just went through last night. So the second $350 billion. And that got Obama off the hook because Bush has now given all that money to Bank of America. Generally, the TARP is a monstrosity, and you ought to set up the criterion, not one penny more to banks, insurance companies, credit card companies, mutual funds, money markets, or any other financial institution. They were given the first round of the TARP, saying if they got that money, they would start lending again to business and industry. Well, we had General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler on the verge of bankruptcy. J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank refused to lend to the automobile industry. The government had to come in and save them, which I support. You've absolutely got to save productive employment. Industrial assembly lines have got to be kept. Otherwise, you're in the third world and the Banana Republic League, and you don't get out of it so easily. So the main idea is stop with the bailout of the derivatives bubble. It's futile. It's hopeless. There's not enough money in the world to ever bail out 1.5 quadrillion of poisonous, bloated, cancerous, fictitious, bloated derivatives, which are now the essence of the banking system. In other words, these banks, J.P. Morgan, Citibank, and Bank of America, they're all bankrupt. They should be seized. They shouldn't be demanding money. They should be in Chapter 11 and indeed in Chapter 7, because I think most of them are just hopeless economic black holes. Now, on the recovery program or stimulus program, I think there should be one. Well, let's ask ourselves, should the government fight the depression? Yeah, of course it should. You're damn right it should. The question is, with Obama, you've got a combination of only bailouts for bankers, no money for productive activity, and then his stimulus is basically green jobs, which I talked about before. Every green job is a net loss for the economy. You get deeper and deeper in the depression, the more green you want. You've got to have modern technology, probably 100 nuclear reactors, 2 in each state would be the best energy policy. You'd want to build a transcontinental magnetic levitation railway. You'd want to put high-speed rail commuter systems around the 25 largest metropolitan areas. Either rebuild the ones you have, the ones in New York City are 100 years old, or in many places like Houston, there's nothing. So you start from scratch. So that would be another thing. But with Obama, it's partly green jobs, again, a net loss, and then he's got this stuff about community development grants. Now, that looks very much like funding things like Acorn and this fascist infrastructure. In other words, a series of parasitical organizations which are going to be used then to try to become a battering ram against other groups in the society that may disagree with the way that things are going. But the idea is, ultimately, this is a deindustrialized country. The deindustrialization was done under Paul Adolf Volcker. You got to roll that back. You've got to reconvert and reindustrialize. We're looking now very soon at a crisis of the dollar. That's obviously the next step, 3-6 months down the line. I can't tell when. But quite soon, as this 8 to 9 trillion, 10 trillion of injected capital begins to work its way through, you're going to see the dollar begin to fall against the euro and the yen. It's been falling against the yen the whole time. Against the euro, it's been actually increasing. And once you realize that the foreign value of the dollar is the value of the dollar, you're going to get into dollar hyperinflation. So you've got to do something about that, and that means you've got to earn foreign exchange to pay for the imports that you want. In other words, you won't be able to give funny pieces of green paper. You're going to have to earn the money or the gold to pay for it.
It's the Alex Jones Show. We'll be back with Webster Griffin Tarpley after this. Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. All right, folks, we are back. It is the Alex Jones Show. We're on the line with Webster Griffin Tarpley, the author of Barack H. Obama, the unauthorized biography. Let's not forget George H.W. Bush, the unauthorized biography either. And, of course, Obama, the Postmodern Coup. You can get that over at Infowars.com right now. I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about whether or not you believe that we'll have military conscription under this new administration. I mean, you've got Rahm Emanuel talking about 18 to 25. Everybody serves 3 months in basic training, and then you're in the military. We now have Charlie Reingold reintroducing legislation to bring in the draft, and then you have Thomas Blankley, who's been talking about this now for 2 years. And, talked about it on MSNBC, said it wasn't the right time under the Bush administration. They'd have to wait for a new administration. And now he released his book, American Grit, this week, goes on Fox and Friends. And, of course, he doesn't like it, but we're just going to need the draft for these emerging military threats in the Middle East. And one of those would happen to be Pakistan. And, Webster, you were one of the first people to actually talk about this Pakistani threat. So do you think that we will see conscription in this country?
Let me say, first of all, that people who went through 2008 talking about an attack on Iran, there was no attack on Iran. There will be no attack on Iran, and the Israelis have been told that they're not allowed to attack Iran. So they've been essentially banned from attacking Iran. I think there's certainly a big push towards what amounts to compulsory militias, compulsory service masquerading as volunteer service. Here we have Colin Powell wants everybody to carry out volunteer service to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. I really wonder whether Volcker, Geithner, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase, Blankfein from Goldman Sachs, Mack over at Morgan Stanley, Larry Summers from the White House. I really wonder if Rahm Emanuel is going to be out there carrying out volunteer service, and I doubt it. And the military side of it is perfectly possible. And I think what you see now is a kind of gloating in the ruling class that they now have a whole series of options that had been foreclosed during the late Bush years because of the fact that Bush was so discredited and so hated and so isolated that they couldn't get away with those things. And obviously the military draft is one side of it, and he would bring that in under left cover. He'd say, we have a humanitarian emergency in Darfur in Sudan. The Burmese government is oppressive. The Pakistanis are harassing women. So it would be now a series of invasions conducted under left cover rather than under the worn-out, discredited cliches of 9/11. So I think all that's possible. The other obvious possibility is the false flag option. And remember the famous or infamous speech by Joe Biden in Seattle on October 19th. There's going to be a foreign affairs crisis in the first 6 months. It's going to be ginned up, generated, fake. The righteousness of the U.S. position will not be obvious. Got to support Barkey. And then the other one, the 12-month perspective, that the economic policies of the new administration, obviously now based on austerity, sacrifice, lowering the standard of living, wage gouging, taking away various economic rights under left cover, that would make the whole Obama team so hated that their standing in the polls will have collapsed within 12 months, which based on the model of Jimmy Carter, I think is about right. And actually, I think it'll go even faster this time around. So they've got all of these things going, and I, of course, urge people, don't suspend your critical judgment. Don't have your autonomous judgment as a citizen taken away by this hysteria, this hype, the messianic utopian rhetoric. The inaugural address will be a tissue of lies. And as a matter of fact, let me ask people to, if you have a chance, tomorrow afternoon, starting at 2 o'clock Eastern, you can, on this same network, Genesis, you can go over to my program, the World Crisis Radio. I recorded, just in the past couple of hours, a counter-inaugural, counter-State of the Union, where I go through an economic recovery program to fight the depression, a program for world peace,